Welcome back, all my fragrance fanatic friends and beauty besties. It's Jamie here, and I hope that you are having a fantastic day today. I am super excited about today's video, you guys. I love vintage perfumes. It started out with Aromatics Elixir, and then I went down the rabbit hole and I never looked back. Love collecting some vintage style perfumes. And don't get me wrong, I also love the new releases, but the vintage perfumes, ooh, they just hit different, Oh, I love them. So we are going to be taking a very nostalgic journey through time in this video. It's going to be a lot of fun. I've got different pictures I'm going to be showing on the screen as we talk about these perfumes and kind of just going into some of the history of the decade as well. And I want this video to be interactive. When I start talking about these different decades, please let me know in the comments section, which one is your favorite decade? What were you doing in that decade? And what were you wearing? I need to know, are there any other vintage perfumes I need to get my nose on? I also wanted to very quickly give a sort of disclaimer that the perfumes that I have, these vintage style perfumes that I have in my collection, are of a newer formulation, a newer batch. I don't have any actual vintage juice that is 20 or 40 years old. So I don't know how similar they are to the originals that came out in those actual decades. So again, let me know in the comment section when I am describing these types of perfumes, is it how it smelt to you back then, or has it changed? I would love to know. I find that so fascinating. I will be leaving the links to all these perfumes we're talking about in the description box below. If any of them are Amazon links, I do get a commission for that. So without further ado, let's get started. Let's start this journey by traveling back in time to the 70s. I think of things like the Watergate scandal and the Vietnam War ending, groovy bell-bottoms, platform heels, the Bee Gees. I think of classic movies like Jaws and Star Wars, 8-track tapes blasting Led Zeppelin, Queen, the Eagles, driving around in Oldsmobiles or Chevy Impalas, and everywhere you went was a smoking section, including planes. If you were a kid, I just picture you playing with an Atari, Pac-Man, Stretch Armstrong. That's what the 70s evoke for me, but I would love, down in the comment section, if you are a child from the 70s, please chime in and let us know how it was like for you growing up. So now let's talk about some of these 70s perfumes. Aromatics Elixir, 1971. This is the oldest perfume I have in my collection so far. Some of the websites are saying it came out in 1975, but the majority of websites claim 1971. So that's what we're going to go with. This is labeled as an aromatic chypre floral. And this is the first perfume that Clinique had ever came out with. The perfumer's name is Bernard Chant, who also created perfumes like Beautiful and Halston. There are rumors that actresses Cate Blanchett and Glenn Close enjoyed wearing this perfume. The accords are aromatic, woody, earthy, malty, warm, spicy, and herbal. This is a very strong, thick, dense powerhouse of a fragrance. There are a lot of notes in Aromatics Elixir, but what I personally pick up are the aldehydes, chamomile, and the sage in that opening, giving it that aromatic, herbal, clean smell. And then I start to pick up on some of the florals, but I don't necessarily pick up on a particular type of floral. However, I do get a sweetness that I believe is coming from the tuberose. I pick up a lot of the woodiness in the base with the vetiver and the earthy, mossy patchouli mixed with incense, giving this perfume a darker, heavier feel. Aromatics elixir can definitely come off very strong medicinal smelling, but it can also come off very sweet and thick and alluring. It just depends on a variety of different factors, including the weather, skin chemistry, and how aged your particular bottle of Aromatics elixir is. I could definitely picture a businesswoman in a polyester suit or a mysterious woman in a dark smoke-filled bar wearing this type of perfume. Overall, I give Aromatics elixir a solid 10 out of 10. Now let's talk about Wild Musk from 1972. Some of the websites say this perfume came out in 1973, but the majority of websites claim 1972, so that's what we're going to go with today. This perfume is by Coty, and if you're interested in more of the history and backstory of Coty and his fascinating interactions with the perfumer Lalique, I made a whole history video about that I'll leave in the description box below for anyone who is interested. I couldn't get any information on who the perfumer is, but I can say that Wild Musk is labeled as a oriental floral, and the main accords are powdery, musky, vanilla, and floral. I definitely pick up a fresh, powdery skin musk in this scent. Definitely nothing like animalic smelling, at least not to my nose. I also pick up a light sweetness from that vanilla and some soft florals. Wild Musk to me is very soft, it's inoffensive, very work appropriate. It just smells like a your skin but better type of perfume. Think of things like Missing Person from Fleur or Amber Vanilla by the Seven Virtues. It's that kind of vibe. Wild Musk makes me think of girls in crochet dresses, frolicking around with flowers in their hair. Overall, I would definitely give Wild Musk a 8 out of 10. Now let's talk about Charlie Blue by Revlon, 1973. Named after the founder, Charlie Rebson. There was an original Charlie perfume that came out right before this in the same year. Then they came out with Charlie Blue, and there have also been lots of other Charlie flankers that have followed it, including Charlie Red, Charlie White, Charlie Silver, and Charlie Gold. But I haven't gotten my nose on those ones yet. I couldn't get any information on who the perfumer is, but it does say that Charlie Blue is labeled as a floral fragrance. The main accords are mossy, floral, woody, earthy, aromatic, and powdery. To my nose, I can pick up on some of that sweet rose mixing with the oak moss, giving this perfume a thick, sweet, earthy smell. I also get this fresh warmth with a touch of aromatic spice, but the main thing I pick up is that powdery, woody sandalwood in here. I feel like overall, predominantly, I would consider this to be a woody perfume. Actress and model Shelley Hack was the face of the Charlie perfumes, along with some others, but you could say that she was the first Charlie girl, which was a phrase used to describe who this scent was for, a modern, independent feminist. To me, this perfume doesn't come across classy or sophisticated. Instead, it smells like an everyday woman. When I smell this perfume, I can't help but envision a woman in a blue jean jumpsuit. Overall, I would give Charlie Blue a solid 8 out of 10. Now let's talk about Love's Baby Soft by Dana, 1974. The nose behind this perfume was Ron Wingard. Love's Baby Soft has a very, let's call it a very interesting choice of tagline and advertisement. Because innocence is sexier than you think. I don't know, you guys. I'm just going to leave that there. But sexy is not the word I would use to describe this particular type of scent. Love's Baby Soft is categorized as a floral fragrance. The main accords are powdery, musky, and floral. To me, this perfume starts out very citrusy and powdery, like a fresh, clean, sweet citrusy powdery. Then some of those soft florals come into play. And then when I get to the base, I'm picking up this sweet vanilla musk, definitely nothing animalic, just very clean and fresh, but not in a soapy way. But definitely ultra, ultra powdery. Basically, this smells like baby powder, but in like the best, fresh, clean way possible. It also kind of reminds me of like a dry shampoo with that type of powdery smell to it. There is definitely a youthful innocence to this overall perfume. You can definitely see this in the packaging, and I can just, I can picture a preteen sitting at her vanity getting ready for school, and she's spraying this out. Or I could also picture like a young adult, maybe starting her freshman year of college, just starting to experience life in a world of possibilities at her fingertips. With that being said, I am in my 40s and I absolutely love wearing this perfume. I think anyone from child to adult who loves to just smell very fresh and clean would really enjoy this perfume. Overall, I give Love's Baby Soft an 8 out of 10. Next up, we have Halston by Halston, 1975. The perfumer is Bernard Chant. And if you remember, he's the same perfumer that created Aromatic's Elixir, which I find extremely fascinating because I see a lot of resemblance in those two perfumes, but maybe that's just me. Halston is labeled as a Chypre floral, and the main accords are woody, aromatic, earthy, mossy, green, and warm spicy. Like I said, this just bears such a strong resemblance to Aromatic's Elixir for me personally. However, with that perfume, you get more of a herbal aldehydic aromatic vibe, versus Halston, you get more of a minty green aromatic feel. Even though this perfume came out in the 70s, I would consider it more of a modern, more wearable take on Aromatic's Elixir. To me, Halston opens up very green, minty, fresh, clean, and I don't pick up much of the florals. However, the base comes in quite quickly, giving this perfume a deep, rich, earthy woodiness, a slightly smoky, warm incense. I also pick up a subtle, natural sweetness surrounding the overall perfume. I absolutely love this scent. My only complaint would be I wish the patchouli was more prominent. I think of a classy, modern woman from the 70s. I get the same sort of image as I do with Aromatic's Elixir, which is a businesswoman in some sort of polyester blazer. And for some reason, the image of a young Meryl Streep is in my head. I don't know why. I can picture a young Meryl Streep wearing this perfume. Overall, Halston is a solid 10 out of 10, in my opinion. Now let's take a trip to the 80s, the decade I was born in. Reagan was president. Artists like Michael Jackson, Madonna, and Prince were playing in all the kids' Walkmans. Cabbage Patch Kids and Care Bears were popular, and every mom had a VHS tape on her shelf of Jane Fonda's workouts. The phrase "bigger is better" definitely comes to mind. Big hair, big bold colors, giant shoulder pads. And just like in the 70s, there were ashtrays on the tables of every restaurant, and you could still smoke in planes, or at least up until 1988. Back to the Future was a huge box office hit. The Nintendo was released with games like Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt. I think of actresses like Molly Ringwald in Pretty in Pink and The Breakfast Club. Those are the types of things that come to my mind when I think of the 80s, but I would love to get your all's thoughts. So now, without further ado, let's get into these 80s perfumes. Starting off strong with Sand and Sable by Coty, 1981. I could definitely tell that this was a Coty perfume just by the bottle design alone. It's so similar to the one we discussed earlier, Wild Musk. Sand and Sable is labeled as a floral fragrance. The accords of the perfume are white floral, green, and lactonic. I get a sweet, creamy, heavy, thick tuberose mixed with gardenia. It's very fresh. It's a little green. This is one of those perfumes that will smell a little bit more clean and green in the colder weather and more sweet, creamy, almost coconut tuberose in the more warmer weather. In my opinion, I definitely think that Sand and Sable is a powerhouse of a white floral. The tuberose in here is not messing around. I think it's the same sweet, heavy, thick, creamy type of tuberose that you would find in a perfume like Love Tuberose, like Amouage. Actually, comparing them side by side, I like Sand and Sable better. It's even thicker and creamier and sweeter and stronger. But it is a touch more green than something you would find in Love Tuberose. But Sand and Sable is only $20. Love Tuberose is in the $200 range. So I'll stick with Sand and Sable. When I smell this perfume, I think of Princess Diana on her wedding day. Like I just imagine that's how she would smell. But again, because in the warmer weather, that tuberose can come off almost coconutty, I can also picture being in like a white bathing suit outside at a pool or a beach somewhere. It just has that sort of vibe in the warmer temperatures. Overall, I give Sand and Sable a solid 10 out of 10. Now let's talk about Dali by Salvador Dali, 1984. On some websites, it says that this perfume came out in 1985. And for a while there, that's what I thought to be true. However, I did some more digging and some more research and found out that this perfume actually launched in 1984 as a limited edition. I believe they were just maybe testing the waters to see how the perfume would do, how it would sell. And apparently it sold very well because then they did a re-release in 1985. I won't go into a lot of huge detail about Dali, just so this video won't be too awfully long. But I will say this, he was a Spanish surrealist artist. The nose behind this perfume is Alberto Morales. He is also known for making perfumes such as Good Girl Gone Bad and CK1. The accords for Dali are amber, warm spicy, woody, green, floral, and aldehydic. It's described as being a oriental floral. To me, there is a green, fresh, clean, sparkling aldehydic opening. But it's being mixed with a warm, spicy clove cloaked in an incense. It's very interesting and complex smelling combination. As the perfume progresses, I pick up a general floral smell, but I can't pick out a particular type of floral, just like a general floralness coming in. And as the base comes in, I get some woodiness. But the most dominant note that I'm picking up with my nose is this really thick, deep, warm, heavy, sweet amber. It definitely has the same sort of characteristics and familiar vintage vibe as something like Aromatics Elixir and Halston, but much, much more ambrier. I picture black and white 80s style woman's business suit with big, bold collars. That's what I envision when I smell this perfume. Because of the odd shape of the bottle, it is very impractical and not very easy to store with all my other perfumes. And I do have other scent profiles similar to this that I just enjoy more. So because of that, I would give Dali a 7 out of 10. Now let's talk about 1984's Paloma Picasso by Paloma Picasso, who is the daughter of the famous painter Pablo Picasso. Paloma was a very successful jeweler for Tiffany and Company. Her grandfather was a perfumer, so to say that she was familiar with perfumery would be an understatement. And she wanted to eventually create a fragrant self-portrait. And that's exactly what she did. This perfume is categorized as a Chypre floral. The nose behind this perfume is Francis Bacris. I couldn't find much information about him other than he did create a perfume for Cher called Uninhibited. The main accords of this perfume are woody, musky, floral, aromatic, earthy, warm, spicy, and animalic. To me, this perfume opens up very fresh and spicy and citrus. There's no aldehydes listed. However, I do get a pinch of a aldehydic type of quality to this perfume. I also pick up on the florals and the warm sweetness coming from the amber. And as this perfume dries down even more, there is definitely a woody, earthy, animalic musk going on. But the other notes are balancing this animalic smell so nicely that the animalic muskiness never becomes too dirty smelling. If anything, it's just enhancing the overall perfume, making it smell very warm and sensual and this sexiness about it. It's definitely nothing like the type of animalic musk that you would find in something like Passion by Elizabeth Taylor or Obsession by Calvin Klein. It's a much more toned down, more wearable version. Very work appropriate, in my opinion. In my head, I definitely picture a businesswoman, very confident, wearing big shoulder pads. And I don't know Madonna personally, and I don't even know why I would think this, but I just assume this is how she would smell in the 80s. Like, when I smell this perfume, I just think this is how Madonna must smell. I don't know. Overall, I give Paloma Picasso a 7.5 out of 10. Now let's discuss Obsession by Calvin Klein, 1985. Obsession is considered among many as a decade-defining scent. It says that this perfume was designed to invoke warmth and sensuality. The perfume is labeled as an oriental spicy, and the perfumer behind this is Jean Girard. The main accords are ambery, woody, warm spicy, powdery, and aromatic. Obsession had some very bizarre commercials that came across more like an episode of The Twilight Zone than a perfume advertisement, or at least that's my opinion. Some famous taglines were, "There are many loves, but only one obsession." And "Between love and madness lies obsession." In the opening, I get an aromatic, fresh, a little citrusy smell that is quickly followed by some woodiness and a lot of spices. And then this thick, deep, heavy, sweet amber mixed with a touch of incense comes in, giving this perfume a very warm, sexy, sensual vibe. But just when you think the perfume couldn't get any sexier, then comes along this dirty, naughty, animalic note, which just amps up the sensual, sexy, intoxicating feel of the perfume. Obsession is an extreme powerhouse of a warm, spicy amber, in my opinion. And I've noticed that the more warm and heated your skin is, the more those animalic notes come out. Sometimes this perfume can come off downright raunchy and indecent, but in the most best way possible. When I smell this perfume, I think of big hair, leather jackets, and fingerless gloves. Overall, I give Obsession a 9 out of 10. Next up, let's talk about Beautiful by Estée Lauder, 1985. This perfume is categorized as a floral fragrance. The nose behind this perfume is Bernard Chant, which we talked about earlier as also being the one who created Aromatics, Elixir, and Halston. There were also two other perfumers involved in the making of this particular fragrance. Sophia Grossman, who is also responsible for creating Eternity by Calvin Klein, Lancome Tresor, and the very first Lalique perfume. The third perfumer's name is Max Gavery. The main accords for Beautiful are floral, aromatic, green, herbal, powdery, sweet, and woody. It says that this perfume is a light bouquet of 1,000 flowers. I would definitely agree. There are many florals listed in the notes here. To me, this perfume has a citrusy, sweet, lightly fruity opening, followed by a giant bouquet of florals. It's hard for me to decipher which particular florals I'm smelling, but I am getting a little bit of light herbal touches, I believe coming from the chamomile. And I'm also picking up some sweet creaminess coming from that tuberose and magnolia. But there are so many different florals, it's hard to tell what's coming from where. It's just a giant bouquet of florals. It definitely gives off a flower shop type of vibe. In the base, I pick up some woodiness and a hint of vanilla. It's a very fresh and green perfume, but also has a sweetness to it. It's ultra feminine smelling. But if you spray too much of this perfume, it can quickly turn into a powerhouse of a fragrance that will fill up the entire house with florals if you're not careful. Beautiful makes me think of Princess Diana, but not the dressed up version. I'm thinking of the mom version. That's the vibe I get from Beautiful by Estée Lauder, is this Princess Diana in her blue jean outfit, taking care of her kids type of vibe. Overall, I give Beautiful by Estée Lauder a 9 out of 10. Next up, we have Poison by Dior, 1985. It's categorized as a oriental floral. The perfumers behind this are Edouard Fletcher and Maurice Roger. The main accords of this perfume are fruity, sweet, amber, floral, woody, and warm spicy. This perfume is a force to be reckoned with. It is without a doubt the darkest, most gothic vampire perfume I have ever smelled in my whole life. It is an absolute powerhouse beast mode of a fragrance. If you spray more than 5 sprays on your body, you may actually get kicked out of a public place. It is that crazy strong. When I first spray this perfume out, I do pick up on some sweet plum and some dark berries. And then as the perfume starts to melt onto my skin, it becomes darker and thicker, mixing with that sweet honey and incense. To my nose, the jasmine is the most prominent floral that I'm picking out. It's very heavy, intoxicating type of jasmine. I also pick up on some woodiness. Overall, this perfume is powdery, warm, spicy. It's very sensual in a naughty, very dark, vampy way. It's hypnotic, it's addictive, and I can't help but picture somebody like Elvira with her gothic black hair and tight dress. Poison, to me, definitely gets a solid 10 out of 10. I have one more from 1985, Design by Paul Sebastian. The company launched in 1979, but all of their fragrances up until this point were for men. It wasn't until 1985 when they came out with their first female fragrance called Design. Design is labeled as a oriental floral. I could not get any information on who the perfumer was, but the main accords are floral, musky, fruity, and powdery. This perfume is a powerhouse of a white floral, like so many in the 70s and 80s. Lots of tuberose. Now, if you remember, we talked about Sand and Sable a little earlier as also being a powerhouse tuberose fragrance. So I wanted to let you all know there are some similarities between these two fragrances. They both have that peach and that gardenia. They both have a heavy heaping dose of tuberose. However, the big difference is that in design, there is also a very distinct warm, animalic, civic musk smell intertwining with that creamy tuberose. It's definitely not as intense of an animalic note as you would find in something like Obsession by Calvin Klein or Passion by Elizabeth Taylor. Because unlike those other two perfumes, Design does not have any incense or anything really dark for that animalistic note to cling on to. So in the perfume Design, this animalic note is just kind of floating around with all of these sweet florals, and it's just balancing everything out so nicely. It's very sensual, powerful, sexy, but in a very sophisticated, rich woman type of way. I don't have any rich friends, so I would have no way of knowing this, but in my opinion, this smells like old money, like rich auntie vibes is what I get from Design. I definitely picture a wealthy older woman, maybe wearing pearls. Overall, I give Design a 7.5 out of 10. The last one from the 80s that I have to show you today is Passion by Elizabeth Taylor, 1988. Some websites are saying this perfume came out in 1987, but the majority of websites are saying 1988, so that's the year we're going to stick with for this video. I have been referencing this perfume a couple times throughout this video, and now we are finally ready to talk about this extremely powerful beast of a fragrance. Passion is labeled as a Oriental fragrance, and it is the first perfume that Elizabeth Taylor came out with. Of course, as we know, she had many other successful perfumes that followed, but we're just going to focus on Passion today. I could not find much about the perfumer or who they were, but I would like to imagine that it was Elizabeth Taylor herself in some sort of fancy robe, wearing all of her diamonds in her $1 million kitchen, throwing a bunch of notes that she found appealing into a bowl and mixing them all up with a whisk. Or at least that's how I like to envision this perfume was made. The accords for this perfume are woody, animalic, powdery, floral, smoky, warm spicy, aldehydic, and musky. The hodgepodge of notes in this perfume are anything but boring and linear. And definitely not for the faint of heart. Passion is very strong, and just a few sprays of this wild elixir will have you set all day and through the night and into the next morning. I pick up on a very bright, almost bubbly, clean aldehyde mixed with creamy gardenia in the opening. In the middle, I get the notes of honey, woods, tuberose, and spices, just blending together and giving this perfume a very sweet, warm, spicy woodiness. Then I start to get whiffs of the base, very heavy, dark, and deep. Incense, leather, thick, earthy, mossy, civic, animalic musk, giving this a smoky, sensual, sexy, animalic overall vibe to the perfume. This perfume is very powdery, it's dark, it's sexy, in an almost overbearing way. However, there is something addictive about that perfume that keeps me coming back for another sniff. When I smell this perfume, I can't help but picture Elizabeth Taylor herself in some provocative advertisement or walking around the streets of Los Angeles in her diamonds and fur coats, maybe with one of those long cigarette holders that rich people use. Overall, I give Passion a 7.5 out of 10. Now we're taking a trip to the 90s. And yes, ladies, this may be a shock to you, but the 90s are in fact vintage now. I'm sorry to be the one to break it to you. The birth of the World Wide Web. And oh, I will never forget the sound of dial-up. Back when your phone was still attached to your wall and your parents could listen in on all of your conversations. Most homes had one shared computer that was mainly used to play solitaire or look up directions for the next family road trip. I will never forget going to Blockbuster every Friday night to get a movie, and the phrase, "be kind, rewind," will forever be stuck in my brain. I remember the teal and purple color being a big thing, and windbreakers were all the rage. There were still smoking sections in restaurants and playgrounds at McDonald's. Everyone's eyes were glued to the TV during the Bill Clinton scandal and the OJ trial. Ninja Turtles, Treasure Trolls, and Polly Pockets were popular. People were shifting from cassettes to CDs, and most vehicles back then still only had cassette players in the car. So if you wanted to listen to a CD, you would have to buy the special adapter and hope you do not hit a speed bump during the favorite part of your song. Teenagers everywhere were blasting Spice Girls, Destiny's Child, TLC, the Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, and let's not forget the pop princess, Britney Spears herself, coming out with her first big hit in 1998, Hit Me Baby One More Time, which was extremely provocative, now that I'm thinking back, of a 16-year-old singing that song in a skimpy little Catholic schoolgirl uniform. But I digress. And I remember everyone being scared of the dreaded Y2K. That was the first of many end-of-the-world traumas I would have to face in my childhood. Some of my favorite shows to watch were Sabrina the Teenage Witch and Boy Meets World. Arguably, I would say this was the last decade where kids could just be kids, riding bikes and climbing trees and catching frogs at the creek, before everyone had a cell phone and before social media was such a big craze. But I don't know, maybe that's just me. Let me know in the comment section what you think about that. Now, let's get into these 90s perfumes. Let's start off with Navy by Dana, 1990. If you remember earlier, I talked about another one from Dana called Love's Baby Soft that came out in 1974. Navy is labeled as a oriental floral. I don't know who the perfumer behind this scent is, but the main accords are floral, amber, sweet, and warm spicy. This perfume is not harsh or heavy like some of those other 80s perfumes we were discussing earlier. This is a very light and very inoffensive scent. It's very appropriate for a young girl or a woman or an office setting. I get a little fresh greenness just at the opening. But as it dries down, I pick up on the warm, spicy cinnamon and the amber, mixing very softly with the white florals. I pick up a little bit of sweet vanilla as well. Overall, I would consider this perfume to be powdery and very easygoing. I would not consider this perfume to be sexy or elegant, but more of an everyday, casual, pleasant type of scent. I picture someone like Kelly from Saved by the Bell or Topanga from Boy Meets World wearing this type of scent. Overall, I give Navy a 7.5 out of 10. Next up, we have the original Tresor by Lancome, 1990. The first of many Tresors in this line. My favorite was the La Nuit Tresor Nude, but that was sadly discontinued. Tresor is labeled as an oriental floral, and the perfumer behind this scent is Sophia Grossman. Now, if you remember, Sophia was also the one who helped create Beautiful by Estée Lauder. So the accords for Tresor are fruity, powdery, floral, sweet, woody, and lactonic. When I spray this perfume out, I definitely get a sweet, fruity, peachy smell, followed by some florals. As the perfume dries down, I get that mix of creamy, musky, apricot, and sandalwood with a light dose of vanilla. This perfume is definitely one of those very creamy, but also very powdery at the same time kind of perfumes. Overall, it's a fresh, fruity floral. In the deep, deep dry down, I get a mixture of apricot and sandalwood, which is so addictive. In my opinion, this perfume has a maturity to it. I picture a mom in the 90s. I specifically picture the mom from Parent Trap, the remake they did in 1998 starring Lindsay Lohan. Overall, I give Tresor a 9 out of 10. Next up, we have Lalique by Lalique, 1992. This was the very first Lalique perfume ever created. For the sake of this video not being too awfully long, I won't go into the full backstory of Lalique. But like I said, I have a video linked down below in the description box if anyone is interested in checking out the full history of Lalique. It's very fascinating. The creator of this perfume was Sophia Grossman. Lalique is considered an oriental floral. The main accords are fruity, powdery, woody, floral, sweet, warm, spicy, and musky. I have to be honest. I love the first few minutes of this perfume. I get this very fresh, almost green, blackberry and pear, mixing with a touch of spice and sandalwood and vanilla. It's really nice. But then in that deep dry down, it turns soapy on my skin. And not the type of soapy that I prefer personally in a perfume. Now, don't get me wrong. I think this is a really nice perfume. It smells like a luxurious bar of soap that you would find at like a fancy hotel. It's very fresh and clean in a classy, everyday way. It's just not my particular cup of tea. Lalique definitely has a more mature type of scent profile. The image that comes to my mind is a sitcom mom. Like specifically the one from Growing Pains. Like I just have that image in my head of who would be wearing this type of perfume. Overall, I give Lalique a 6 out of 10. Now let's talk about Anise, The Energy of the Sea by Fragrances of Ireland, 1998. This is a family-owned business that has a passion for creating fragrances inspired by the beauty and energy of the Atlantic Sea off the coast of Ireland. Anise is labeled as an aromatic fragrance. The perfumer is Arthur Burnham. The accords of this fragrance are aromatic, citrus, marine, fresh, salty, aquatic, and woody. When I first picked up this fragrance, I'll admit, it didn't smell like much. It kind of smelled like water. It was so light. But it just needed to sit for a little while, and it got so much better. Now I definitely pick up on this very fresh, clean citrus mixing with a salty ocean air breeze. I get a touch of natural sweetness coming from the nutmeg. I also pick up on the sandalwood. To me, when I smell anise, I definitely think of standing on the edge of a cliff in Ireland. I'm looking out over the Atlantic Ocean. I'm wearing some cardigan because there's this cold breeze blowing by that's spraying some of the ocean water at me. That's what I kind of envision when I smell this perfume. It's definitely not like a
Hawaii or Florida type of beachy scent. It's more of a colder ocean beachy scent, if that makes sense. Overall, I would give Anise, The Energy of the Sea, a 8.5 out of 10. Now let's talk about J'adore by Dior, 1999. The first of the J'adore collection, my personal favorite being the 2023 J'adore L'Or. The original J'adore is definitely iconic. It's labeled as a fruity floral, and the perfumer is Calise Becker, the same woman who created an equally iconic Love Don't Be Shy by Kilian. The first model chosen to be the face of J'adore was Carmen Cass, followed by Charlize Theron, which I can never pronounce that name right, you guys. But you know who she is. The new face to the J'adore perfumes is the stunningly beautiful Rihanna. Her skin always looks like it's glowing gold, so I feel like she was the absolute perfect person for these J'adore advertisements. The main accords for this perfume are floral, fruity, sweet, fresh, and aquatic. I know I'm probably going to be in the minority here, but the original J'adore comes off so soapy for me. Like, it just really translates very soapy on my particular skin chemistry. I can only handle 1 or 2 spritzes of this perfume. Any more than that, it feels like I have an actual bar of soap in my mouth. But if it's just a few spritzes, it's really nice, but very soapy for me personally. I also do pick up on a overall fresh floral sweetness to the perfume, but there's something about that melon mixing with the white florals that always just turns more soapy on my skin chemistry. But nevertheless, there is no denying this perfume is stunningly beautiful. It's elegant, it's classy. I feel like it's timeless, sophisticated. It can be dressed up or in a more casual setting. There's a maturity, a classy maturity to this perfume. Don't ask me why, but the person I envision when I smell this perfume is Meg Ryan in the movie The Women. I don't know if you all have ever seen that movie, but Meg Ryan in that movie, that is how I envision her smelling of the classic J'adore. Overall, I give J'adore a 9 out of 10. Now we are headed over to the early 2000s. Oh yes, you heard that correctly. In my vintage video, we are talking about the early 2000s. I mean, if you think about it, I am 40 right now. In the early 2000s, I was still in high school. So these perfumes are vintage, whether I want to admit that or not. So we're going to be talking about the perfumes from the 2000 to 2004, which was the year I graduated high school. And that is where we'll do the cutoff. Or at least that's what I personally consider the cutoff of vintage perfumes to be. But for you, it may look totally different. So yes, the early 2000s. The years of low-rise jeans that I could never fit into, and completely plucking all of your eyebrows off and then penciling them back on. A lot of us didn't see our first cell phone until senior year. So we were still writing notes and putting them in funky little origami shapes and passing them to our BFFs during class, hoping we wouldn't get caught. I would love to know what you guys were doing around that time. Let me know down in the comment section below. And now, without further ado, let's get into these early 2000s perfumes. Let's start off with Glow by Jennifer Lopez. This launched in 2002. The creator was Louise Turner and Catherine Welsh. Glow is categorized as a floral fragrance, and the main accords are floral, citrus, musky, and powdery. Glow is a very fresh, clean, citrus white floral, definitely borderline soapy. However, if you wear this out in the heat of summer, it completely transforms this perfume. The soapiness completely disappears from this perfume, and the citruses start to become very sparkly and almost glowing, like sun-kissed skin, and the amber and the vanilla start to warm up as well. It's really interesting how it transforms like that depending on what the temperature is. Glow is considered to be the first modern celebrity perfume success. It's been on the top 10 celebrity perfumes of all time list for forever and has arguably paved the way for other celebrity perfumes like Sarah Jessica Parker and Britney Spears and Paris Hilton. Overall, I give Glow by Jennifer Lopez a 10 out of 10. Next up, we have Forever Elizabeth by Elizabeth Taylor, 2002. This is considered a floral fragrance, and we do not know much about who the perfumer is, but the main accords are fruity, floral, powdery, green, woody, violet, sweet, and fresh. This is very different than the Elizabeth Taylor that we saw in the 80s. This perfume is so stunning. If I could use one word to describe it, it would be absolutely ethereal. This is such a fresh and green, bright perfume. There's a sweet fruitiness, and it's mixing with these beautiful florals so perfectly. And then in the base, you get this woodiness, and it's just all blended to perfection. Just so fresh and clean, springtime vibes. It's not soapy smelling. It's very clean, but not soapy, at least to my nose. It reminds me of like a wedding. It has a classiness to it, but it could also be like an everyday fresh, clean scent as well. Forever Elizabeth, in my book, will forever be a 10 out of 10. Moving on to another amazing Elizabeth Taylor fragrance, Gardenia. This one came out in 2003. I don't know much about the perfumer. The main accords are white floral, green, fresh, lactonic, and musky. And there's really not too much to say about this perfume. It is what the name suggests. It smells like a fresh gardenia, straight out of the garden. It's very creamy, sweet, clean, fresh, a little green, gardenia. Nothing more, nothing less. It's so perfect in that way. And I highly recommend this perfume for any other gardenia lovers out there. This perfume definitely gets a 10 out of 10 for me. Moving right along to another Jennifer Lopez fragrance, Still. This one came out in 2003. The perfumer is named Miguel Girard. The main accords are white floral, green, fresh, citrus, fruity, powdery, and musky. This perfume to me is very fresh and clean, but not soapy, at least to my nose. This has a green, almost herbal vibe to it. It's got citruses, some fruitiness and white floral, a fresh spiciness going on. But the whole perfume has a thickness to it. I think because of that rice note, kind of giving it this starchy thickness to the overall perfume that I find really interesting. In general, I feel like this smells like a iced tea. Not a sweet tea at all. There's no sugar in this tea whatsoever. It is a zero sugar iced tea with a squeeze of citrus is how I would describe this perfume. It's a great everyday scent. It could be a gym scent, completely office appropriate. It's that perfect white t-shirt and blue jeans type of perfume. Overall, I give Still by Jennifer Lopez a 9 out of 10. And last but certainly not least, we have Curious by Britney Spears. This came out in 2004, and it was her first celebrity perfume launch, and a very successful one, in my opinion. And there were many other successes to follow. I think Britney Spears' Curious is arguably, in my opinion, it is the most iconic celebrity perfume of all time. But I could be biased. Curious is considered a floral fragrance, and the perfumer's name is Claude Deer. The main accords are floral, aquatic, fruity, sweet, musky, woody, fresh. To me, this perfume is an amazing white floral. I feel like the way they were able to balance the sweetness and the freshness to perfection is unmatched. Again, just in my opinion, I'm biased. I love how the pear and the lotus give off this really aquatic freshness. But then there's this creamy tuberose and magnolia and vanilla. And it's so sweet. It's almost like candy. I won't say it's a bubblegum tuberose, but it's borderline bubblegum tuberose. It's a very candified white floral. Like the white florals have been dipped in like a liquid sugar and been crystallized. But like I said, it's balanced out so perfectly with that fresh aquatic side that it never becomes too gourmand leaning. Curious is most definitely, for me personally, the most nostalgic perfume from my childhood. But I also think it's still so wearable and relatable for today as well. So it should go without saying that Curious by Britney Spears most definitely gets a 10 out of 10 from me.
So those are all of the vintage perfumes I have in my collection at the moment. I really hope that you all had just as much fun watching this video as I did making it. And please let me know if there's any other vintage perfumes I need to get my nose on. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And remember, before you go, to seize the day and overspray. Bye, guys.